It has now been 2016 for 29 minutes. Happy 2016! So here is the song that I've chosen for the theme song for tonight's session. Oh, what a night. Oh, what a night. Be cautious, the booty is bigger than it appears. Who backed out? I backed out. Oh, what a night. Oh, what a night. So what, I'm high. Look at baby over there. What's up, love? Mama, come here. Until she started dancing like she do it in the mirror. So can anyone guess why I used that song? Oh gosh, I must really like being a teacher. I teach an after-school program, and apparently I really love it. If you don't know why I picked that song, it's because of the chorus, where he says, she started talking, but I really couldn't hear until she started dancing like she do it in the mirror. It relates directly to what someone with ADHD can pay attention to. So I'm not going to delve into what ADHD means, all that stuff. I just want to give you the basics of how ADHD can or has been destroying your relationships. And to do that, I first have to tell you what people with ADHD are able to focus on. And I didn't know that I had ADHD until I was 31 years old, but it explained a lot. And I can tell you a little bit about that story, but I don't want to right now, just because I want to tell you some of the basic ways that ADHD can destroy things that you might have worked really hard on, or thought you did, or really wanted, and you don't understand why it ended in explosions, shreds, piles of smoke. And especially if you have a pattern, looking back in your life, if you have a pattern of relationships ending in a certain way. A child or adult with ADHD has 4 focus centers from this book that I will write. So these are things that the person with ADHD will be able to focus on without forcing themselves. The first one, if whatever it is of personal interest to them. The second one, is it novel? Third, is it a challenge? Or fourth, is it a grievous deadline? I would just say deadline, but usually it's like by the point that it's become like choo-choo, like you're standing in the tracks and you're like, oh shit. Those are the 4 things that people with ADHD will focus on. That's it, too. People with ADHD do have a superpower, and it's called hyperfocusing. When you hyperfocus on something, it means the rest of the world disappears and falls away. And whatever it is that you're hyperfocusing on, whether it be a personal interest, novel, a challenge, or a deadline, shit, if you put them all together, whatever it is that you're focusing on, if it's all of those, will be the one great left in all of Fantasia. And everything else will fall away into the nothing. The person with ADHD will be focusing a tremendous amount of attention on the other person, whether they have ADHD or not. If both people have ADHD, then they will be like sending, you know, it'll be like the lightsabers, just like, that's what it'll be like, attention toward each other. And after a while, you fall into a relationship, which a relationship isn't always going to be like that. Even non-ADHD people do that. But when you have ADHD, it's like to this ramped up kind of crazy level. It's not sustainable. That's the thing. It's not sustainable. It's like the euphoria stage of a relationship won't last. This is euphoria on like crack, meth, and Red Bull. No. Whatever that drink was, that one that they outlawed everywhere. What was that called? Yeah, all that plus that. So because it's not sustainable, the person with ADHD, their attention will start to shift. They will start to shift to other things in their life. Especially if any of the things that come up are a personal interest, novel, challenge, or a deadline to them. Like in any relationship, once you kind of know you have somebody, people tend to get lazy, right? But if it's the ADHD person, they will be like, okay, I've now compartmentalized you in this part of my life, and now this other thing is coming up that needs my attention. I have ADHD. The chemistry in my brain is different. I have way fewer neurotransmitters than your average bear does, so I actually cannot pay attention to these different things in my life. I can give an extreme amount of attention to 1 or 2 things. That's it. I am not able to juggle priorities. So I'm just going to hope that you're okay over here, person that I was totally fascinated with for a while, but now I have to concentrate. And I still love you. Deep down, the person still likes or loves or is interested or whatever, but since it's not new anymore or a challenge, or it's still personally interesting, but this is something that is more personally interesting right now because it meets the new and the challenge and maybe the deadline. So then ADHD person goes over here, right? And meanwhile, non-ADHD person completely suddenly feels this yank away of this crazy laser beam waterfall of attention that had been just pelting them. And it's not realistic. Even the euphoria stage of a relationship isn't realistic. So when you add ADHD to that, it's really not realistic. It almost feels like narcissism because of how much, because that's what narcissists do too, is they flood somebody with attention and then draw it away. But that's purposeful. Somebody with ADHD doesn't do it on purpose. They do it because it's just how their brain is wired. So what happens is there becomes a problem over here with this person, ADHD or not, because they are now feeling completely left out in the cold to whatever else has come up that meets more of the criteria than they currently do. Then a problem happens. And then it becomes interesting again for the person with ADHD because now the problem is new. And now this problem is a challenge. And now I have personal interest in it because I want to save my relationship. So, especially if this person is starting to pull away. So then ADHD person has to come over and figure out how to solve it. And then they go eventually back to whatever else has come up in their life because they cannot juggle. They can't do two things they can maybe do two, but not really. ADHD people can't do that many things well. They're usually going to do either one thing really well or a whole bunch of things kind of crappy. But who you see when they're giving you crazy hyper-focused attention, it's who they want to be all the time. Maybe not all the time. That's not realistic for anyone. But, you know, it's who they see themselves as and who they do want to be. But it's just absolutely not sustainable. Then the problems keep happening like that, and then life keeps happening like that, and pretty soon this person does not believe you don't care, and it's going to fall apart. Because this one keeps promising and promising, and this one really means it too. They're like, this time I'll be better. But it just doesn't work that way. If there's been nothing... If this one doesn't recognize they have ADHD, a lot of the time, this is the one that's going to recognize it and tell them. And then it is the responsibility of this one to do something about it if they want to keep this one. You would be shocked at how much medicine, behavioral therapy, books can make the ADHD person not a different person, but like them, but super them. A lot of people, I think, are afraid of medicine because medicine is medicine. When you're wired differently than everyone else, you're actually at a disadvantage. Everyone else has an advantage over you, but you do have the advantage of being able to hyper-focus, and that is one of the coolest things in the entire universe. And that doesn't go away when you get, if you decide to go the medicine route, it doesn't go away. Really, none of your ADHD goes away. It just gets more manageable. You are able to see from not just A to B, but A, B, C, D, E. One of the best analogies I ever read about ADHD, because you don't know what it's like. When you've never tried to take the steps to be treated, you think that you're fine. You think that everybody else's life is like this. But after you get treated, you realize what a disadvantage you were at before. And you wonder how you made it through your life as far as you did and how you succeeded in anything. Okay, so the analogy says, having ADHD is like driving in the rain at night and the rain is pelting your windshield and your windshield is blurry and your wipers are going back and forth as fast as they possibly can. And when they swish, for a fraction of a second, you can see clearly out of your windshield. And then everything goes blurry again. That's what having ADHD is like. But you'll only know that if you have taken the steps to go to a doctor, to get diagnosed, done research, tried some behavioral therapy, gotten medicated. You're not going to know it when you're still inside the ADHD tunnel vision mode. Because that's what it is. ADHDers are very tunnel visioned. As you can see, they only have 4 things that they can focus on. Oh, and the tunnel vision generally is anything that they are interested in. So what else does that mean about people with ADHD? They are so selfish. And the sucky part is that I don't think that who they are inside is selfish, but they literally can't focus outside of themselves. They can sometimes, but they don't do it very well. So they come across as being so selfish. My former self was so selfish. But it's because you have this much attention span for things while the normal person has this much attention span for things, and I'm saying things as in everything. So when you only have this much attention span, but you need to do this many things, your attention span isn't going to want to do the things that aren't on this list. That's all you have, you know. But somebody with this much attention span that needs to do this many things, they're going to be able to do the bills and take out the garbage because they've got enough to go around, you know. They've got enough pancake waffle batter to cover the whole waffle iron. But the person with ADHD needs to make the whole waffle iron of responsibilities and whatever, but they only have enough waffle batter for, you know, a quarter of it. That's pretty much what it's like. So it's just never going to happen if, first of all, they don't know that they have it. Second of all, if they know that they have it and they don't want to be treated. And so it's going to make them look and feel very selfish. It's going to make a lot of blaming going on because they are going to forget they're going to forget birthdays. They're going to forget to pick up things at the store. They're going to forget to take out the garbage can. Then it's going to turn into one person becomes like a parent, kind of. And then that's going to create a dynamic that is going to instantly ignite childhood for the person with ADHD, possibly both people, because the ADHD person is used to being misunderstood and used to being in trouble. So in a relationship, this will instantly ignite all that childhood resentment. Whoever the other person is will become like a parent figure to them, and then it will just be like bickering back and forth with your parents. One final thing I would like to say is probably the one that sucks the most. Because of all the things that ADHD can only focus on, if somehow, by some miracle, the relationship or whatever it is going well, ADHD will create its own chaos. Because ADHD truly thrives on, I just said this to someone, which is actually why I'm doing this, because I was talking about it and I was like, I bet more people would want to hear about it. ADHD thrives on chaos. It needs instability. It needs change. And if you can look at it that way, someone with ADHD will go and create chaos in a stable relationship in a dysfunctional attempt to remain interested in the relationship. And I don't even know if I've read that anywhere, but I just kind of thought of it. I knew that ADHD would create chaos and disorder if there wasn't any. And it really sucks too, because the life of an ADHD person is usually very chaotic. You know, you're constantly pinging on whatever, your go, depending on whether you lean more on the inattention or the hyperactivity scale, or both, like yours truly. Believe it or not, I am much lower on my scales than I was once, so that's really cool. Another thing that ADHD, because of their tunnel vision and because they seem so selfish, tunnel vision means that empathy is going to be very... this isn't for everybody. I think probably some people with ADHD, especially... I don't know. I think that some people will be able to be empathetic, but I couldn't be, and I know quite a few people that can be, and then the ability shuts down, especially in a relationship. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe people with ADHD, they can be empathetic, although it may be harder for a lot of them, but once it comes to a relationship, all of a sudden their ability to empathize with the other person shuts down, because if there's a problem, it's not... You know, if it's a problem, if they're being made to feel like a kid or whatever, then, you know, it's not interesting. It's repellent. A lack of empathy in the first place is going to be hard on a relationship if you're just having a bad day or going through something and you just need somebody to care about you. It's also going to be toxic and dysfunctional and will end up causing the demise of the relationship because you are not able to put yourself into the other person's shoes, which means that you will not be putting someone else above you almost ever, except for in the very beginning when it's really fun. After that, after like the shininess and newness wears off, when you're going about your day, you're going to forget to think the other person even exists a lot of the time, unless they're right in front of you or texting you or whatever, but it's just because you're going along, you know, and you're dee and you're a little happy ADHD tunnel vision. You're only thinking about the things that are your top 4 things, even though there's this person that loves you and is thinking about you. but you're not returning the favor. And so you're going to forget the birthdays. You're going to forget to pick things up. You're going to not think about that person throughout the day and think of nice, you know, because I read this thing that said every day you should wake up and think of one thing that you can do to make your person happy. Even if not every day, like, I don't know, once a week's pretty good at least, you know. But somebody with ADHD is not going to wake up and think those things ever. You know, they're just going to be like, okay, I love you, and now I can move on and think about, concentrate on whatever else is on my cool list. So not only in an argument or a disagreement are they not going to be able to put themselves in someone else's shoes, they are going to have a hard, if not impossible, time putting someone else above them on the importance list. That's what it takes. It takes two people putting the other above themselves in importance. And you have to be able to count on the other person to put you above themselves, just like they have to be able to count on you to put them above yourself. If somebody slacks there, if one of the yoke of oxen is dragging the other one consistently, it ain't fair and it ain't gonna work. You know, I had a therapist that told me this, that's why I just brought that up. It needs to be evenly yoked. And someone with ADHD is going to end up being the dragged. And it is a real fucking drag. For the people dragging me, the people have dragged me before. I've dragged people before. It doesn't work. And you can look up statistics. You can look up adult ADHD in relationships. You don't have to take my word for it. But people with adult ADHD, either they don't get married at all because they can't focus long enough, or they do get married and divorced. Like, their divorce rate is so much higher. And then sometimes by the third marriage, they've figured it out. And they're just like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I've had this happy marriage. And looking back, and because when I look back on my own life, I can see it all the way to when I was little, because I know a lot of people or a lot of articles say ENTPs don't have ADHD, they're misdiagnosed all the time. I've read the same stuff, okay, and I can tell my story sometime, but if you can't tell by now, I do have ADHD and I'm an ENTP, so double whammy, whatever you want to call it. My dad flew through Agent Orange, so I think I got a little of those chemicals in me as well. Actually, I'm almost positive. My sister and I both. But anyway, that's not the point of any of this. To close, I would say that I could not be delivering any of this information to you if I had not got, figured out that I had ADHD at 31, not knowing it that I had it my whole life. And I wouldn't have cared enough to find out about myself. I wouldn't have cared enough to find out about personality theory. I was not introspective at all. I couldn't stop long enough to wonder about myself or wonder about others or wonder about how I could be better. I mean, it's hard for me to even remember what I was like then. I'll tell you one thing, I wouldn't have been sitting here talking to you guys on New Year's Eve. I would have been out. I lifted tonight, I took people around, and then I came home and I cheers to my parents, and then I came in here to do this. Most of my life, that's not what my New Year's Eves would have been like. I was a much different person then. I just wanted to give you some basics so that if you suspect that you have it or somebody that you're dating has it, the change in people is astronomically better. And if you have ADHD and you feel like, man, this sucks, I can never have a successful relationship, there is hope. But you have to want it bad enough. You have to want a relationship, a successful relationship. You have to want to be a better person in a relationship. But not even that, just a better person for yourself, because it means you're going to be a happier person for yourself. It means you're going to be able to do the things that you can do now even better. And you're going to be able to care about the people you most likely feel guilty for not caring about enough, and then you ignore or whatever. You do that ADHD thing where you're like, shit, I feel bad. No, I'm just not going to think about that. I'm not going to, because ADHDers are really good at compartmentalizing and convincing themselves that they can only do this and that, or this is why I didn't do that. ADHDers, they just don't know how to juggle, and they feel awful about it. They felt awful their entire lives about it. I did, And you start to think that you're just stupid, or you're incapable, or undeserving. You start to think that you're all the things that you've either felt or heard, or if this sounds familiar to you, you're not hopeless at all. It really just comes down to how bad, it really comes down to you. Do you want to be a more awesome version of yourself? Do you want to end any of the patterns that you've had in your life? Do you want to have a balanced and fulfilling life instead of being really effing good at this or that, or possibly not really effing good at anything, depending on where you are, because ADHD can do that as well. Anyway, happy 2016, everyone! Yay! That's Sasha's front feet. I don't even want to move her. She's too comfortable on this heating blanket. She's so happy.